Welcome, everyone, to another deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at a really, really cool topic, the Hadesians.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one for sure. And a bit of a spooky one too, right?
Absolutely. It's one of those civilizations that kind of just, it pops up every now and then disappears again.
Right. It's like they exist in the shadows, like just out of reach.
Yeah, and the information we have on them, it's pretty scattered. There's the Galactopedia entry, of course, and some stuff on the starcitizen wiki.
Right, right. And those are our main sources today for this deep dive. But even those sources, they don't really give us the full picture.
Exactly. And that's what we're here for, right? To try to connect the dots, to fill in the gaps. So the Hadesians, where do we even begin?
Well, let's start with the basics. They were a spacefaring civilization, that much we know, capable of interplanetary travel. But here's the thing. They never seemed to expand beyond their own system.
Yeah, that's weird, right? Like, you'd think a civilization that advanced would want to see what else is out there. Explore, colonize, the drill.
Yeah. Right, exactly. But they stayed put in the Hades system, which, by the way, is about as welcoming as a black hole.
No kidding. Isolated, unclaimed. You can only get there through pirate-controlled space. So not exactly a tourist destination.
Nope, definitely not. And even if you could get there, what would you find? A bunch of ravaged planets, each one bearing the scars of some ancient conflict.
Hades the Fourth, for example, or what's left of it.
The half-planet, right. Literally split in two.
Imagine that. A giant, jagged chasm cutting across the surface. A constant reminder of whatever happened there. I mean, what kind of weapon could even do that?
That's the million credit question, isn't it? The Hadesians, they clearly had some seriously advanced technology.
Okay, so we've got a mysterious civilization with planet-splitting tech. But who were they? What did they look like?
Well, they weren't exactly what you'd call humanoid. Imagine large, rounded beings, multiple thin appendages.
Appendages, like extra arms.
Yeah, something like that. And really strong, elongated arms.
So not your typical little green man, huh?
Not even close. And that just adds another layer to the mystery. What kind of society did these beings create? What were their motivations?
All right, so we've got a basic picture of who the Hadesians were, or at least what they looked like. But what about their history? How did they get to the point of splitting planets?
Right, let's dive into the timeline. The Galactopedia tells us they settled in the Hades system somewhere between 290,000 and 300,000 BCE.
That's a long time ago.
It is. And for a while, they seem to have flourished. Spread across multiple planets, established trade routes, developed a shared culture, the usual markers of a thriving civilization.
How it all went wrong?
Until the Hadesian Civil War.
And that's where things get really interesting, right? Because this wasn't just some minor squabble. This was a full-blown interplanetary conflict with weapons capable of literally ripping planets apart.
Exactly. And the sources are pretty vague on what actually caused the war power struggles, ideological differences, maybe a fight for dwindling resources, who knows?
Sounds like a recipe for disaster, whatever it was.
It certainly was. And the results are pretty clear. The Hades system today, it's basically a cosmic graveyard, a testament to the destructive power of, well, whatever the Hadesians were capable of.
Okay, so we've got a timeline, we've got some idea of the conflict, but what happened after the war? Did anyone ever find out about the Hadesians?
Well, for centuries, the Hades system was lost, forgotten, hidden away in that pirate-controlled corner of space.
Until 2515.
Right. A tramp freighter called the Mary Crow stumbles across it. Now, the Mary Crow wasn't exactly known for its ethical business practices.
Stolen goods.
Let's just say they weren't hauling space pineapples.
So even pirates appreciate a good hideout, huh?
Apparently so. But they didn't keep their discovery a secret forever. Word got out. And by 2531, the system was officially charted.
And then the UPE shows up.
Right. As they always do. Interested in terraforming, of course. Turning those ravaged planets into something useful.
Makes sense.
But here's the thing. They abandoned those plans. Pulled out completely. Why? What did they find among those ruins?
Ooh, good question.
Right. And the sources don't really tell us. Did they uncover something dangerous? Some remnant of Hadesian tech they thought was too risky? Or was it something even more unsettling?
Spooky.
Definitely. But one thing's for sure. The UPE's withdrawal, it created a power vacuum.
So who rushed in to fill the void in the Hades system?
Treasure hunters. Drawn by rumors of Hadesian artifacts, researchers trying to piece together what happened, and of course your usual assortment of less-than-savory types.
So basically the Hades system becomes a free-for-all.
Pretty much a Wild West in space. But then, things get even more complicated. Enter Corson Messer V.
Oh boy, here we go.
Messer, convinced the Hadesians possess some kind of superweapon, launches a full-scale military operation in the system.
Classic Messer, always looking for an edge, always obsessed with power.
Exactly. And his methods, well, let's just say they weren't exactly archaeologically sound. More like smash and grab, destroy anything in his path to get what he wants.
So, what are we left with after all that? A system ravaged twice over, first by the Hadesians themselves, and then by our own ambition.
Yeah, pretty much. The Hades system today, it's a mess. A chaotic mix of danger, mystery, and tantalizing clues.
And very few answers.
Right. The prevailing theory is that the Hadesians wiped themselves out in their civil war. But there are other possibilities. The Loremaker's Guide hints that maybe there were multiple species in the system. Maybe the conflict was even bigger than we thought.
So we've got a civilization capable of splitting planets, a system steeped in mystery, and hints of multiple species involved. This is more than just a story of extinction, right? It's like a giant puzzle box begging to be opened.
And the biggest question of all, what really happened to the Hadesians? What secrets are still buried in those ruins?
Well, we've got one more piece of the puzzle to discuss, something that adds a whole other layer of intrigue to the Hades system.
We're talking about the crypt.
Oh yeah, the Hades cryptid, Hades Satan, Tobias, Thanatos. It's got a lot of names. But what is it? What are people actually seeing out there? So, yeah, the cryptid, it's one of those things that's hard to pin down, right? Like, what are we actually dealing with here?
Yeah, descriptions vary, like a lot, but there are some common themes you see popping up. Lots of folks talking about this humanoid figure, but no skin. Like you can see the muscles and veins.
Okay, that's pretty freaky. But, you know, eyewitness accounts, they're not exactly the most reliable source of information. People see things, especially in a place as creepy as the Hades system.
Right, right. But there's one account that's always kind of stuck with me. A nav jumper named Eli Thorne. He was on his way to Hades III, ship on autopilot.
Wait, hold on, Neb Jumper. Those are the guys who, like, plot the jump points, right?
Yeah, the independent pilots. They know their way around those jump points. Anyway, Thorne's ship is on autopilot. He's in the middeck.
Okay, so far so good.
And then he sees it, this figure, standing there in the darkness. Humanoid, exposed muscles, blue veins, the whole 9 yards.
Hold on, mid-deck encounter. That's like straight out of a horror movie.
Right, and here's the thing. The moment Thorne sees this thing, his ship lurches, like something hit it.
What?
Seriously.
Yeah, and the creature vanishes.
Okay, now that's just messed up. Did Thorne ever figure out what caused the lurch? Like a system malfunction or something?
Nope, nothing. He checked everything, couldn't find a single thing wrong with the ship.
So he just sees this creepy cryptid, the ship goes haywire, and then nothing.
That's about the gist of it. And it really messed him up, this whole experience. Said he felt this overwhelming sense of dread, like he'd seen something he wasn't supposed to see.
Can't say I blame him.
Yeah, Thorne actually ended up selling his ship. Said it didn't feel like his own anymore, like something had tainted it.
Wow. Okay, so we've got a creepy cryptid sighting and a sudden ship malfunction. That's pretty convincing. What do you think? Is this thing a surviving Hadesian? Maybe some mutated version?
It's possible.
Yeah.
Right. The war, the planet-splitting weapons,
Yeah.
who knows what kind of effects that could have had on the Hadesians. Or maybe it's something else entirely, something we haven't even begun to understand.
Could be. We're talking about a system that's been isolated for centuries. Who knows what's lurking out there?
This is getting a little too close to a horror story for my liking.
Well, there's always the possibility that it's just a myth.
Right.
A story that's grown and changed over time. Space travelers, they love a good ghost story.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But even if it's just a story, it says something about the Hades system, doesn't it? Like there's something about that place that just unsettles people.
For sure. It's a place with a lot of baggage, a lot of history, and who knows what else is lurking out there in the darkness.
Okay, I'm officially creeped out. But you know, even if the cryptids is just a spooky tale, we still got a civilization that wiped itself out with planet-splitting weapons. That's not exactly a comforting thought.
What do you think? What can we as humans learn from the Hadesians?
Yeah, it's definitely a cautionary tale, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shows the dangers of unchecked ambition, of technology that gets out of control. Like, even with all our advancements, we're not immune to making the same mistakes.
Exactly. And that's the thing about the Hadesians, I think. They're not just some ancient civilization, lost to time. They're a reflection of ourselves.
So are we doomed to repeat their mistakes?
Yeah.
Or can we learn from them, forge a different path?
That's the million credit question, isn't it? And I don't know if there's an easy answer.
I guess the best we can do is keep asking questions, right? Keep trying to understand what happened. Maybe somewhere in those ruins, there's a clue, a message, something that can help us avoid making the same mistakes.
Maybe. Or maybe the message is just be careful, humanity. Don't let your reach exceed your grasp.
Okay, now I'm really creeped out. It's kind of hard to wrap my head around it, right? Like a civilization that could split planets, just
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah, it's one of those things that really makes you think, about the fragility of it all. Even with all that technology, all that power, they still couldn't escape their own destruction.
It really makes you wonder what the UPE found when they were checking out this system, right? Like what could have made them just pack up and leave like that?
Yeah, it's a pretty big question, right? I mean, the UP, they weren't exactly known for being cautious, especially when it came to expansion.
So what spooked them? What did they find?
That's the million credit question, isn't it? Maybe they stumbled across some Hadesian tech, something that just freaked them out.
Like a warning sign or something?
Yeah, maybe. Like a big flashing neon sign saying, turn back now.
I like that. A cosmic warning sign. But seriously, though, what if they found something that made them question their whole approach? Their expansionist policies, their drive to control everything?
Interesting. Like a glimpse into the future. A future where their own ambition leads to their downfall.
Ooh, spooky. But,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of makes sense in a way, right?
Yeah.
The Hadesians, they were clearly driven, ambitious, technologically advanced, but it all led to their destruction.
Yeah, and maybe the UPE, they saw the parallels,
Huh.
and it scared them straight. Their story is a cautionary tale, no doubt. A reminder that technology, power, it can be a double-edged sword.
And that ambition without wisdom is a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. We need to remember that.
So what's the takeaway here? What do we want our listeners to remember about the Hadesians?
I think the biggest thing is humility, right? Even the most advanced civilizations can fall. And we need to learn from their mistakes, not repeat them.
And maybe, just maybe, there's still hope for the Hadesians. Maybe they're not completely gone. Maybe there's something out there waiting to be discovered. A message, a warning, something that can guide us on our own journey.
It's a nice thought that even in their destruction, they might still have something to teach us.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. From planet-splitting weapons to creepy cryptids, from UPE cover-ups to Messer's destructive rampage. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah, it has. The Hadesians, they're a fascinating bunch. A real enigma.
But even with all the mysteries, all the unanswered questions, I think one thing's clear. The story of the Hadesians is a story about us, about humanity, about our potential for both greatness and destruction.
And about the choices we make along the way. Choices that will determine our own fate.
So, to our listeners, keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep searching for answers, and never forget the lessons of the past. Because somewhere out there among the stars, the future is waiting.
And who knows what wonders, what dangers, what mysteries we'll encounter along the way.
Until next time, keep diving deep.